to the family farm.
Here's to
the family farm. Woo! Done.
My name's Dorothy Montgomery. I was born and brought up on the family farm. It was a farm that was left in the McGee name for 4 generations. I like to go to the pasture and bring in the milking cows, and they milk by hand, of course. And then in haying time, we were all out in the hayfield, bundling hay and picking up hay. And as we got older, we helped with the raking machine and 1 horse. And at the barn we had a hay fork, and we used to like to lead the horse out to dump the hay fork and bring the horse back to the barn for another load.
I never spent time in the house. I was my dad's like a hired man all the time, which was good for us. And then there's my sister and my brother. All 3 of us left home, went away to college or university, and then met people that we ended up staying with who all have farms. So
my father had a small dairy farm, and unfortunately he had bought it before the Depression with inflated prices, and they were doing very, very well. This was in 1923 that they were married, and then when the Depression came, you were trying to make your payments with inflated prices with Depression income, and it was very, very tough, but he managed to hang on. We had a well house, and when we wanted drinking water, we had a big pail beside the sink. We didn't have running water in the house. And on bath night, we had a big bathtub, and it was put on the stove till it was nice and warm. And the little one, me, got in first on a Sunday night, and my sister got in after, and my mother got in after, and then I didn't help, but my sister helped her put it back on. So when my father came in from the barn, he got in it. And then after, his overalls were put in that to soak overnight so that they'd be easier to clean in the morning. Now, we did not waste water.
All right. I'm Everett Taylor, and I was a farmer most all my life, and I started really young. I started milking cows by hand at 10 years old. When I got up to about 13, 14 years old, I bought my grandfather out because he couldn't walk anymore. He had 4 cows. I paid him $200 for them, on time, of course. And that went good until I was 16. And I said, I'm sick of school. My father said, well, you're not going to school. You're damn well going to pay rent here, or board. And you do all the chores anyway, the cows. The 5 or 6 that I own, you can have them, but I want a quart.
I'm Rick Lockwood, and I live in Richmond. Born on a family farm in St. Felix of Kingsey, a dairy farm. Back when I was young, there was you were more neighbors helping neighbors. It was everybody made a living. Some people owned one piece of machinery and you shared it. Like Mr. Mayotte had the thrashing mill, and all the neighbors got together and thrashed together, and another neighbor had the saw rig, and my father had the roller and stuff, and we just shared it all amongst everybody in the neighborhood, shared, and everybody was willing to help one another.
We were so poor and hard up, but we were never hungry. We grew up, we knew what to do. We could drive horses, we could milk cows. Anything that had to be done, no matter, we were expected to do it.
Well, I can remember when I was growing up, in the summertime, I used to help with the haying. I would rake all the rakings with the old rake. I would, one particular day, summer day, and there was a lot of hay, and they used to have a loader. It was all loose hay, and I drove the horses for the hay, to pick up the hay, and it was 13 loads. And at the end of the day, my father gave me $1.
Hello, my name's Gwyneth Grant. I'm originally from Great Britain. I grew up on the Welsh borders on a small family farm. One of 5 children, and everybody piled in, and we all helped to do chores, feed orphan lambs and milk the cow, all that kind of thing. My mum made butter, so a very bucolic existence. And just 24 years ago, I guess, we decided, my husband and I, to move to Canada. Yep, I said, no, well, we're not going to live in town. We're going to see if we can find a bit of land so we can bring up the kids in the country the way I was brought up, and he was okay about that.
Alton Richards, I'm from Range 8 in South Durham. I've lived here all my life on this piece of land, and then I'm supposed to be the 6th generation here. I can remember back in the 50s, I had to get up and help to do the chores in the morning at night and get ready and go to school and walk out to Lisgar there in the snow up your arse and and all that. And in the 70s there, after when the big exodus come and Bernie Lefebvre took over there, and then the English people around here, they all just flew the coop here, most of them, took off up to Ontario and out west, I don't know where in the hell they went to, but I was the only one who was silly enough to stay. Eh? They couldn't drive me out. I told them I was here first, and I wasn't Christly well going, so yeah, and I'm still here today.
The family originated from Ireland, and a mother and 3 sons came to Lavenir in 1845. And the oldest son, James, came and bought land here, and it was the first farm on this road. And he was one of the first mayors in South Durham.
Community in the 60s and 70s was a very, very strong thing. Basically, it was all family farms, and a lot of established families had been there for years throughout the area.
We had our little Gallup Hill Hall up there because we always, in the community there, we always had bingo parties or Halloween parties, or we always had the club. We had a club there with the surrounding members who used to belong to the church actually, but then others all joined us, and we had a club. And we put on summer dances every couple of weeks like that, and we had some pretty good old hold-downs up there.
Rural communities were like an extended family. The neighbors came and they pitched in with these, what we used to call them bees, work bees. But anyway, this was the way that the communities were.
Back then, that it was a closer knit group of people than now.
And back then, especially in the English community, they had, I want to say it's not 4-H, but the farm forum. And I remember the last time we were supposed to have farm forum, and this was the last time we had it in this area. And I got all ready, and the sandwiches and everything, and there was a nice storm came, and we didn't have a single soul come out because everybody was afraid to go out on the roads. And that was the last meeting that would have been, and that's got to be 40 years ago anyway. But when I came to Durham, from the overhead bridge to Alverton, I knew every farmer on that road, and they were all English. And I think the only one left on that road English now are the Hodges. And that's just in the span of 40 years.
Yeah, years ago there was a thrashing and sawing of the wood piles and a lot of that stuff that was all, you traded time with people or did stuff like that. There was no money involved. But now it's not that at all.
In the 70s, the mid-70s about, there was an incredible exodus of young Anglophones. That's a guarantee that they all went away because there was no work here. It was probably not so much political, although politics were involved. It certainly was economical because there was absolutely nothing for them to do. So they left in droves.
In the 70s, there was so many of our neighbors and our friends left, like you didn't have that close-knit community.
And the big social event at home was take the milk to the train in the morning, and then after milk the train left, you had a visit in the post office and the store.
A lot of our social activities were with the families. It's the same. My father would go to Gore, and it was the same, and he would see all the neighbors there, get all the news.
When we moved here in 1974, there were 3 uncles in the area. They each had a dairy farm, and they all moved away and went to Ontario. So we're the only ones left.
Just used horses all the time. And then we got up in the 60s, we bought a small tractor, and then but we still used the horses, and then they graduated them, kept getting bigger, a little bit bigger here, but we still done everything the old way and the hard way. So.
Most farmers had 3 horses. You had a team, and then you either had a horse that wasn't as big as the others, but like in hand time, that was the rake horse.
Years earlier on, the horsepower was the way that farm implements were pulled. There was a transition after the Second World War that tractors became cheaper and more available. Most farms kept their horses just the same. They buy a tractor to do what a tractor would do, but they also had a team of horses to do what a tractor couldn't do. And gathering sap, sugaring, and so on. This is where the horsepower remained up until present day in some cases.
We had to have horses for the winter time anyway, because the tractors just wouldn't go, because we had to clean the stables every day, and we had to draw the manure away, and you had to have horses.
My mother-in-law, Mrs. Mountain, who was a very, very good businesswoman, she had saved the family farm because her husband died suddenly and left her with 3 boys. And she was one of the first people if not the first, to buy a little Ferguson tractor. And that was in the early 50s. They still kept the horses for a little while.
We had to protest the government quite a bit. We did. We went after every politician we could find and buttered them up. And in 1953 or so, they gave us a little line over the hill.
But I can definitely remember it coming, because I can remember when we were still using the oil lamps and the little house with the moon shape in the door sort of thing. So of course it was wonderful when it came. It made a lot of changes.
Electrification.
Electrification.
It was a godsend really, because we didn't have to cut ice to keep the milk cool in the summer. We had lights in the stable rather than the lantern. Electric motor to run the milker machine, and we didn't have to worry about gas spilling or fire from the gas engine. And then further down the road, all we had to do was push a button and the stable became clean, which was something else. And no, it's just a godsend, and I don't think that if it wasn't for electricity that I would have been a farmer.
Because when we were little, there was no electricity. And that is the biggest thing, and this happened in 1948, I believe, that the hydro lines were put through.
That made a difference.
Altogether, all the difference in the world in the standard of living of rural people, because we had electric lights to start with. There was electric motors to run milking machines. There was electric milk coolers as opposed to cutting ice in the pond and bring it in, storing ice, and then in the house for the women, I mean, it became a washing machine, refrigeration.
I went to Montreal in 1949. That's when I graduated, and came home at Thanksgiving. They had power.
Just like that.
And every room in the house was lit up. Yeah. But, you know, we grew up without power. That's the way it was. And there was a system that worked well. And we had a radio with a battery. And only were allowed to run that, you know, ever so often, special programs. But, no, that's the way it was.
The big thing on these farms without power is if you had running water.
My time there has been some changes. Certainly, like every other industry, the computer is much more involved in our business too, and it's become a lot more government regulated.
Days back in the 70s, a lot of small herds, 20 cows, 30 cows, 40 cows would have been considered a big herd. And starting about the mid-80s, early 90s, a lot of these farmers were going out of business. We see very few small family farms left.
The farms have changed quite a bit over the years. They've grown considerably, and the value of the farms has come up quite a bit. The farms gradually grew in size. The herds went from 15, 20 cows up to 30 and then 40 cows, and it also became quite necessary to make things as more and more efficient. The family farm as we know it today we may find that there are fewer and fewer of them around.
I'd say farms have probably increased over the 30 years. I've been doing this for 30 years, so over these 30 years they're probably 4 times bigger than they were.
We never went away on holidays, but we had lakes right beside the farm. We used to go there swimming on Sunday afternoon, but we never went camping. We just didn't go away. It just didn't exist. And that was in the 50s and the 60s when the quota system came in. Yes, everybody started making a much better living. It was much more decent. They could hire employees. The guys could start taking weekends off if they wanted. So the world did change for the dairy farm. That's a guarantee.
What happened when the quota system came in is any of the real small farmers or the older farmers just said no, they couldn't handle this, that they weren't willing to take that gamble at that stage in their life. Yeah. And I think that's where the change started for the dairy farm. I think it was at that point that farming really took a big change.
Yeah. Milk quota came in 1976. I say mid-70s, I can not exact on the year, but it was a huge change. Prior to that, it was you just produced what you could produce and went with it, which yet it was kind of in check all the same because no one was really expanding. So you're talking about nothing more than a piece of paper that you pay for the right to get up to go to work in the morning, because it's all it is. But now an average small family farm has over $1 million worth of quota, which is completely out of line. It's shot the costs of everything just way up.
Well, in my opinion, the farmers do not have the heavy physical labor that my father had or my husband had. But the stress is, there's a lot of stress now and long hours.
A lot of things have changed in the way farming is done today. A lot has changed in the equipment. Equipment is much bigger, much more efficient. In our case, we used to, and we still do some regular square bales, but the big round bales sure saved a lot of time. In fact, we wouldn't have animals today if it weren't for those.
The standards are quite high now. You know, our bacteria has to stay low, our somatic cell has to stay low, and I think it's a good thing. I think that we have to have confident consumers. We have to have the general public thinking that what they're buying from Canada is the best, so that they will turn and buy Canadian food.
Farmers were basically untouched to run their own business the way they saw fit for many, many years, and basically we're just coming into line with the other industries in this country, and so it's inevitable that it was going to come our way.
I don't think the government wants the family farms. You know, I had a little farming around and they kept hounding me till they put me out, eh? They kept finding this wrong and that wrong, and they told me one time there, the milk fella did, if I painted the barn, put new windows in and painted the roof, it'd help my cows. I could never see that, eh?
As far as the government, we obviously need government norms to make sure that the food we're producing is produced properly. So for that, I think that's a good idea.
Lately, in the last years that I worked with the government, we were doing a lot of the environmental services, offering to improve environmental conditions on the farm. Manure storage became very important. Keeping cattle out of waterways became very important.
I think another aspect of farming has changed is our awareness of what we're doing, how it affects the environment.
We've had very stringent environmental norms to meet in the last few years. And my son and I put up a kilometer of fence, 10 kilometers of fence, just to go around the ditches and so on, to prevent them from going into ditches.
The role of the UPA is kind of like having a second government. It's become too much, too top heavy, and too untouchable. Now, I've said some against UPA. It has helped in other aspects. In its early years, in the early 1900s, it was to help both producer and farm laborers.
We're discussing the UPA and the pros and cons. And the pros, of course, is that everybody in North America is jealous of us. because we have one strong voice for farmers. It's one voice backed by government laws. The other side of the medal is, as we've seen in the case of governments when they've been there too long, they become arrogant and things start coming down from the top rather than democratically rising from the bottom.
First, my name's Tom Coddington. I've lived here on the Coddington Road all my life. So did my father before me and my grandfather.
Hi, my name is Kathleen. I'm Tom's wife. We own a dairy farm. We have 9 kids, 8 girls and 1 boy. And yes, the family's finished. Say hi, guys. Say hi to Keith and Vicky. Say hi, guys. Hi. Say hi, Jesse, Serena.
Hi, my name's Jessica and I feed the cows for the farm, and I really like it because it's a lot of experience for a kid to grow up on the farm. You learn a whole bunch of stuff new all the time.
Hi, my name is Vicky, and I like growing up on a farm because I know that I'm not part of the kids that Canada considers lazy nowadays. I'm actually outside working, knowing that I can be proud of that.
Jennifer, I like to play with cats, and I like playing with my dog.
My name is Laura. I milk the cows with my mom. I phone them. And sometimes I help my sisters do the farm. And I like playing with cows.
My name is Serena, and I help cows sometimes, so it's very fun to play with my cows.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Coddington. I feed calves and I rake during the summer.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, my name is Jeremy Coddington, and my main thing to do on the farm is feed the cows.
I'm Julie, and I work on the farm. I do the new place. I put the cows in the robot. And what I like about the farm is there are a lot of experience. There's a lot of animals to play with. What to do is usually we take a whole bunch of us and we go in the forest and we make forts. Probably these past years we probably have 3 in that side of the woods and 2 on that side.
My youngest is 7, the oldest is now in CEGEP, so the different needs are there. The younger ones, the attention, and the older ones just as much. But I mean, now there's the driving and the going shopping and Mom, can my boyfriend come over? And the little ones, it's like, Mom, it's homework time. So once they do come home from school, usually that's a good 2 hours of doing homework for me and the kids. So
we've been using liquid manure since 1960 or 61, which has helped the farm tremendously in its profitability over that period of time and its environment management, which is more of an issue today than it was then. We've used bunker silos, alternative feed storage rather than dry hay, and upright silos for both ease of production and cost efficiency. We've used machinery to reduce labor in all aspects of production, whether it be cropping, such as no-till, to reduce the need to pick rocks all the time, and to conserve the soil. We use a self-loading wagon. That one piece of equipment can do almost everything on the farm. If we want to do dry hay, we use a self-loading wagon and store it in an ag bag, and we have beautiful dry hay that never molds and doesn't require the use of string or back-breaking muscle to move it around. We use commodities bins to buy products in quantity. We also buy a lot of byproduct, and in fact today we're going to receive a load of glucose from a derailed railway car that has to be, it's no longer a food grade, but it can still be used for cattle feed. Sometimes get frustrated at people who say have a nice weekend to me, and I don't know what a weekend is. It's just another day in my book, and in fact I wouldn't know what I would do with a weekend if I had one. So.
I'm Tim Keenan.
I'm Maria Enright. These are our 4 kids, starting with the oldest.
Devin.
Rogan. Riley.
Hannah.
About 130 head of Holstein cattle. 4 kids and my wife and I, with the hired man, run the farm. I come from generations of Irish. I'm the 4th on one side, the 5th generation on the other side that has been in farming in Canada. We milk around 60 cows.
Well, I love mostly the animals.
I love how you make more money than living in like an apartment.
I like it because you have a big property.
I like it because you can find very neat stuff.
If we didn't live on a farm, my mom would not let me have any pigs or anything because if we didn't have a barn, we wouldn't have anywhere to put them.
It's good for you got more. Well, most people have like just cats, and we have everything. You get muscles when you work on the farm.
I do the milking during the evenings, and during the hay times I do the mowing and the raking and the tedding, and also help stacking up the bales and stuff.
I help in the evening when you all the other chores, like doing the hay and doing the upper barn
I feed the calves outside. During the hay, I unload.
I take care of the goats and I do some of the hay.
Well, I started doing actual tractor work when I was 10 years old, around, and I started by doing the mowing all by myself at 12 years old. So then I would go for 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours at a time during the fields and rake the hay or ted it or mow it.
I would do the tedding at 9 years old, and it's hard sometimes because you're not sure what been ted and what haven't.
I'm 10, so I just started tedding and all that. It's a lot harder than I thought.
Growing up on a farm always taught us to work hard and to, appreciate the things that we had from working hard. And I think, from my farming as a kid, and I look at my own kids, it's not really that different. Perhaps a little less manual labor. We have an automatic feeder now in the barn rather than feeding everything by hand. But the general, as opposed to my grandparents telling the stories, of milking, or even my dad went from milking by hand to automatic milkers, that's sort of his story. But for my own kids, it hasn't changed that much.
One
My name's Angela Neal, and I've been in 4-H for the last 15 years of my life. 4-H in an agricultural community really helps teach the kids values and morals that you want in a good community structure. Many of my friends and former colleagues in 4-H are now members of town councils at very young ages. They're members of fair boards at very young ages, and it really helps keep the community going.
Hi, I'm Devin Keenan. I've been in the Richmond 4-H for 7 years. These are my two little showbirds. They are Seabrights, and I bought them 2 months ago. One of the biggest things in 4-H for me is going to be the trip that we're going to. We're not exactly sure where it is, but it'll be somewhere out of Quebec.
Hi, my name is Stephen Martin. I think agriculture and 4-H are a big part because it brings the community closer to agriculture and we learn what it's all about.
Okay, so my name is Alma Enright and I'm current president of Richmond 4-H. I think 4-H is very important because it helps you learn all different things about agriculture. 4-H is fun because you meet all kinds of new people. I have friends in Howick, Ormstown, and places that are far away.
I'm Chelsea Morin. What I like about 4-H is it gives you great opportunities. Like, it helps you learn, and for me, living on a farm, it helps me with showing.
This is Lois Miller. It's been a big part of my life and given me a lot of the foundations, I would say, for who I am today.
I see a lot of more and more robotic milkers going in barns now. Anyone that has to build a new barn for whatever reason, be it after a fire or just desolate buildings, generally that's what's going in, are robotic milkers. Again, basically due to labor. Some of them are very, very efficient and running very well. Cattle, you barely see any cattle pastured outside anymore, which used to be the way, which in hindsight is not a bad thing. I mean, because barns today are much more comfortable. Cattle are much more comfortable in barns today than they used to be. It's now down to a daily quota system. So you have to produce so much every day. So you have to try to keep your production at that same level as much as possible. You have cattle outside in intense heat in the summertime, things will just drop on you tremendously. So that's the big part. So they're fed the same and kept because they had to keep their quotas up. That's the big driving factor behind it. And the other part is as farms have gotten larger, if you used to have 35 or 40 cows to pasture, well, that's one thing. If you've got anywhere from 100 to 200 to do today, you just can't do it. It's too much physical work to eat up all that land, so you're better to harvest that crop and feed it to the animals. It's a sad way of maybe going around the circle, but that's what it is.
I think we're going to see larger farms run by families. I hope that we're going to keep the farm owner on the farm. The running of a farm is becoming more and more complex. It's a business. And it's not necessarily doing what farmers enjoy doing, is getting their hands dirty.
So I'm Terry Kaiser, it's my wife Michelle. We have Hepatica Farm in St. Armand. We're third generation family farmers. I think the future of the family farm is a tricky one. It's a lot harder to maintain the same lifestyle, same quality of life. You have to have a good size where you can have a good quality of life with your family. It's important that your children see that you enjoy what you do. And it's getting harder and harder. We're a smaller scale farm, and it's harder to produce on a smaller scale efficiently. So we hope to keep it going. I think it's important that kids see you enjoy what you do for a living.
Well, the way I see the future, with the evolution of technology on a dairy farm and mechanicalization of milking and calf feeding and other aspects of the farm, heat detection, it's getting easier. It's more for people who like laptops and stuff like that. So I feel the younger generation will slip into that fairly easily. And we notice it now. Our 10-year-old runs the robotic milker, and she won't allow anyone else to have anything to do with
My
it.
daughter Julie tells me, I know these cows better than you, and she does.
And because she's an expert on a computer, and it's a computerized machine that functions and milks.
My name's Bob Mastoni. I work dairy industry doing the counseling and inseminations. There's not a lot of young people coming into the farms right now, and we see a lot of farms selling out with no young people interested in it. It's kind of discouraging.
If it changes as much in the future as it has just in the last 30 years, I can't imagine what it would be like. I really can't.
I guess there were a lot more children involved in farming as there were now. There are not many more now, I guess. Out of my friends, I only know a couple that have a farm and work there. Most of them they do completely different things.
The small farm is the best because you can move quickly. You go quick and you see the opportunity to sell or stuff. That's what I think. It's good.
Initiative like this market that has been going on for 10 years now, and it's still going on, is a great way to support local agriculture. The government has been pushing, the MAPAC, Ministry of Agriculture, has been pushing towards large-scale farms and giving subsidies to large-scale farms. Well, it's not very encouraging for young people to take on and have small farms.
I think there's always going to be a future for family agriculture. I think there is one. It's not made easy. The purchase of land is a lot harder than it used to be. So to actually get started as a family to do this, it's not an easy thing to do.
I think the future can be good. Smaller farms are developing, and the market they're looking for is local. I think people would need a little bit of encouragement by I don't know.
Yeah, you know, the family farm was so nice. It has slipped away, but it's going to come back. It's going to come back. Small guys deciding that I'm going to make garden stuff. I'm going to sell it in the marchés. I'm going to sell my beef at the farm, and the people are coming to see me. Get away from the big system. The consumer wants good, healthy food. It's as simple as that.
What's going to go on in the future, it's a bit of a crystal ball to look into yet, but certainly they are going to get larger and larger, and there are going to be fewer of them. They're going to be run as businesses, and so it's a total different aspect than it used to be in the 60s and 70s even of the small family farm.
Obviously the family farm has changed incredibly since the 70s and the 80s. The farms are just getting bigger and bigger, but some years ago I was in the south of Texas, and the south of Texas is about 30 years ahead of us. All of their family farms have been sold. Mega farm people went in and bought them. The owner of the land lives in downtown, big city, wherever, and he puts the houses and the barn down so they don't pay taxes on them. And they grow one crop, which is usually corn or soya. And we're doing the same thing here. And I would think that 20 years down the road, our little farms, if it's not people from the city buying them, they will not exist.
Well, certainly there's lots of talk about the corporate farm and the demise of the family farm. But still 97% of the farms in Canada are family farms. Some of them are very large farms, but they are still family-run operations. And I'm confident in the future of the family farm. I think they'll change as they have changed a lot in the last several decades. They will continue to change. They'll continue to get bigger and more productive, more efficient, because it's the only way to stay in the business. But I think 20, 30, 50 years down the road, the family farms will still be the majority of farms in the area and in the country.
I would
wouldn't change farm life for anything. It has got to be the best experience for a family and raising kids. I've had so many compliments about kids who come from a farm, how they know how to deal with a lot of different things in general in life, how much more mature they are, and for us it's just, I wouldn't change it all for my family, my kids, or anything.
Well, here's to the family farm. It's still surviving.
Here's to the family farm.
Here's to the family farm.
Many a story I've been told about life in these hills. Stories of men and women of strength and courage and will. Small farms, one-room schools and halls dotted these quiet dirt roads. Rewind those stories, put them on play, talking about those good old days. They slipped away, slipped away, slipped away. Tell me again of this place lost in time that faded away like a wedding bell's chime. Rewind those stories, put them on play, talking about those good old days.
Now here's to the family farm. Here's to the family farm.
And here's to the family farm.
I came to the 8th range in '75, and I learned from my neighbors. I learned about land and I learned about hands doing hard summer labor. Barnyards, hayfields, roadways and lanes buzzed in the summer's hot sun. Rewind the stories, put them on play, talking about those good old days. They slipped away, slipped away, slipped away. Tell me again of this place lost in time that faded away like a wedding bell's chime. Rewind those stories, put them on play, talking about those good old days. I remember Granny's kitchen, sipping tea and lemonade. And I remember all those summers and the pretty plans we made. They slipped away, slipped away, slipped away. Tell me again of this place lost in time that faded away like a wedding bell's chime. Rewind those stories, put them on play, talking about those good old days. Rewind those stories, put them on play, talking about those good old days.